is cooking. The Rock says he's all psyched about the XFL. Oh, wait a minute. The Rock isn't psyched. He's pumped about the XFL. No. The Rock isn't pumped. The Rock is geeked about the XFL. Yeah, that's it. The Rock is geeked. Oh, wait a minute. The Rock was geeked last week, so The Rock can't be geeked now. The Rock is more than that. The Rock says he's cranked about the XFL. As a matter of fact, The Rock is just like everybody else in America. We're all psyched, pumped, geeked, and cranked. So to all the coaches in the XFL, to all the players in the XFL, and on behalf of the fans in the XFL, The Rock simply says, just bring it. Just bring it.
More burger!
For the love of football. 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 Let's go.
If you smell what the XFL is cooking.
Welcome, football fans. This is For the Love of Football, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Bryant.
It's alive! It's alive! On April 13th, the XFL declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Jeez! And we entered some dark days. But today, a gleam of hope has emerged with new ownership taking over the XFL. This is episode 130. Finally, there's a gleam, men. Bryant, wipe those tears away because there's a gleam.
Alan, it's been quite the ride these last few months, really, with everything going on in the world, especially with us XFL fans. I'm just excited, enthusiastic, whatever you want to call it, to finally have some hope here with the XFL with this new ownership.
It's a beautiful thing. Yes, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and RedBird Capital making huge news today with the sale of the XFL in bankruptcy court just before the auction. We're going to go through over all the basics you need to know about what went down, and then we're going to give our reaction. But Vince, welcome back to the show. We've been waiting for you longer than we've been waiting for this sale, and now we get them both on this same return episode.
Yeah, this is really something here. I'm not sure if I should have expected this, if I should be surprised. You know, I just have so many emotions going on right now during these unprecedented times. But this is something to get fired up about. XFL coming back with a man at the helm that is really gonna put this thing to the next level.
So that's what we're going to get into, because there is some hope here, and the fact that it's Dwayne Johnson, the Rock, and a whole bunch of money. It's really exciting from where we were 4 months ago, and that's when this show stopped abruptly along with the league. And maybe, I don't know if we really gave a definitive answer, Brian, on why the show stopped along with the league, but I figured it was really there's nothing really to talk about. I want to give people false hope. We don't want to sit here, rack our brains over an uncertain future for the XFL, let alone the entire world right now, and we're in the midst of a pandemic. So we put the show on hiatus, knowing that this August date would be something to talk about. And here we are with this return episode, and we don't know where it's going to go from here in terms of when we'll put out episodes, or if we're going to go weekly. We're going to see how things go after dropping this one, but it's good to be back. And I think we just had to give some people a quick reason why we stopped the show along with the league. It felt like it made more sense, and we didn't want to be blabbing on here every single week, kind of like we were the last few episodes before we did stop.
We didn't want to go back to the days of the earlier of this show where we really had nothing to talk about other than the XFL was coming back, because really we didn't know if the XFL was going to come back. And now that we know that there's hope, that there's promise, that the XFL is in the hands of new ownership with Dwayne Johnson and company, I think it's fair to bring the show back now, and we'll see how this leads to shows going forward.
For sure. But this feed is alive and kicking, and we thank you for following us at XFL Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course that XFL hotline, which Bryant, I know you wouldn't be surprised to know that we still get calls to the hotline, even though we've been on hiatus. 724-565-4XFL. So keep the calls coming in. React to this show for us. Listen to it, react to it, call us there, hit us up on Twitter, and we'll see what you think about the news we're going to break down here. And I just cannot believe we're back here with Vince. Vince, if you're ready, I want to get into all the basics of this deal so then we could start speculating and go back to kind of how this show was before XFL 2020 kicked off.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's rock. In the cover 2. Yeah, I went hiking in my Battlehawks t-shirt today, Bryant, and we're giving him a shout out, a caw to all the Battlehawks fans listening in. And here we go to the rest of the XFL fans who've been waiting. Let's get into the sale of the XFL. So, of course, we said April 13th, Chapter 11 bankruptcy was declared by Alpha Entertainment, Vince McMahon, the former owners of the XFL. Now, today, on August the 3rd, 2020, The Rock evenly split a $15 million bill with Jerry Cardinale's RedBird Capital. And, of course, Danny Garcia, who is The Rock's business partner and ex-wife, is also a stakeholder in this sale. She will be an executive. And according to the court filing, this was the only bid, Vince. So before this thing could go up for auction, this bid was put in and the sale was made, and it will become official on August 7th, assuming the closing conditions are satisfied, and then the complete closing the book on the sale after all the legal mumbo jumbo will be August 21st. So we're looking at about 3 weeks from now that officially The Rock and his partners will be the owners of the XFL. Are you okay with that timeline?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean,
Are you going to be holding your breath for the next 3 weeks like I am? Because that kind of is what I mean, anytime you say subject to a court approval, I get kind of nervous.
Well, yeah, you never want to have to go
Card
through approval, but
card subject to change, I guess, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's interesting. Only one qualified bid. I'm not quite sure what that means. Qualified bid, but
Well, it was it was the only bid that was put in before the auction began that was of the amount of money that was acceptable, I guess, for the conditions. Is that what you were going to say, Brian? I stepped on you there.
Something like that. No, it was something. I think qualified bid means people who are qualified to purchase this product, right? Like you can't be someone who's either not invested in it or didn't actually submit an application, I think, too, because there was a deadline to submit applications for the bidding process as well. Yeah,
there were a bunch of NDAs dished out as well for the people who had, looked into the XFL's finances and everything going on with the league before they put a bid in as well. So there were other bidders that were prepared for the auction, but RedBird Capital and Dwayne Johnson go ahead and beat everybody to the punch. And Jeffrey Pollock, who's been with the league since the bankruptcy was declared and since a bunch of employees were let go, he was one of the very few that was kept on to see through the sale. And he had a quote that said, "I could not imagine a better outcome for the XFL. Danny, Dwayne, and Jerry are the best possible ownership group for the exciting journey ahead. Their collective track record of success in entertainment, sports, and media is stellar, and I think our fans, players, coaches, and partners are in for something special." Now, Jeffrey Pollock made no bones about it, Bryant, when the league closed, that this was the most successful launch of a new football league in the spring ever. Unfortunately, pandemic and a changing world, stopped that. But now he's saying some other optimistic stuff here. And do you believe that? Do you believe that? Forget about fans, players, coaches, the partners, the people that are going to be that have been working with the XFL, when they see The Rock and his partners are joining in. Is that a completely different kind of deal we're going to be talking about in our hot read compared to what Vince McMahon brought to the table?
I think Vince McMahon himself in the world of business is probably more intriguing of a partner, I would think, for the likes of ESPN and Disney and Fox and things like that. The Rock brings just a different perspective, I think, into this entire world, right? The Vince McMahon and his sports entertainment background, The Rock has that and more, and I think that might be intriguing to some partners going forward as well.
RedBird Capital also invests in the Yes Network. They just bought Toulouse Football Club in France. And they're also, most intriguingly, Vince, involved in on-location experiences, which is partially owned by a company called One Team Partners, which is basically a union tie-up from the MLBPA. Damn, haven't podcasted in a long time. And the NFLPA. So there are ties with RedBird Capital and the NFL there, the NFL Players Association. And this One Team Partners that they're conjoined at the hip under this umbrella, they help athletes maximize their value, name, and image and likeness rights. So they're all about NFL players. So having the NFLPA on your side when maybe you're trying to become an official minor league maybe might be the move. We'll speculate on that, but a lot of interesting tie-ins with this RedBird Capital and Jerry Cardinale or Cardinal. I get the RedBird reference there. $4 billion in assets, Vince.
Yeah, that's a lot of dough. And I was reading up on this company, this investment firm or whatever you want to call them today, and they got their hands in a lot of stuff, no doubt about that. So you would think that they got a lot of cash that they could put behind something like this, something that's going to need a lot of cash behind it if it's going to be successful.
Or if they're not putting the cash behind it, they have the contacts and the relationships with other entities that might make another sale. I mean, these are all sorts of things to speculate. With the sale, nothing is definitive. We'll see what happens, and we're going to speculate a little bit at the end of the show. But now I want to get into some of the statements, part 2 of our cover 2 here. And Danny Garcia, who is going to be a stakeholder and executive in the XFL, she had some very interesting quotes in terms of the goal of this whole group. And when asked about playing by ESPN, Danny Garcia said, we're planning for it. We're planning on playing, saying we're doing all the steps that need to happen for the execution of that, but we're also being mindful of what has actually been successful. And she said, it's been really interesting to see that in sports, when you create a bubble, your players are safe. When you don't, it's chaos. A nice jab at MLB there. We are a league, because of the number of teams we have, that actually can create a bubble environment. Those discussions are active. So if the time comes in 2021, Bryant, where the league could actually play ball, they would think about doing it in a bubble type setting. And obviously that makes sense with only 8 teams. And we saw it happen basically in Houston during training camp.
Yeah, firsthand experience of what the XFL is able to do to bring 8 teams into one city and kind of control them in a sense. The XFL has that to their advantage. I think there's a lot of open-ended questions, right? What's going to happen in 2021? All that stuff. The optimism that we're getting from Danny Garcia, I think, is great. Obviously not looking to just kind of make money on the assets, but actually trying to what I'm saying is they're not trying to like buy the car and then chop it up and sell it up, in parts. This is
they're not flipping
try to actually. Yeah.
They're not going to bankruptcy court, throwing some cash at them, but just enough cash, and then getting all the assets, flipping it, and reselling it. They're not doing that. No flipping here. This isn't house flippers. They're not putting this on HGTV. Danny Garcia, The Rock, especially when we get to his quote, very football focused. They want to put on a football league. And I'll say real quick, the last quote I have from Danny Garcia in terms of the infrastructure, because before there's personnel, before there's a bubble, they have to get people back in a headquarters somewhere, whether it's Stamford or somewhere else, Vince. They have to rebuild that infrastructure, which I think might be the most difficult thing to do. Danny Garcia said, while it's not 100% just turning the lights on, there's still a tremendous amount of infrastructure and relationships that you can actually call people back, pull people back. We saw the work that they were doing for this year, and there was some excellent work. There is a team there. So obviously they're eyeing some of the people that were previously in place with the XFL. Who knows who they could get? I'd say us here on This Is the XFL show, we're ready to go back to work, aren't we? Are you ready to go back to work, Vince?
Yeah, if it's talking football, I'm always ready for that.
Back to work we go.
What about you, Brian?
And you know, Bryant is always ready to talk about a league that hasn't played any games.
That's the best part of this entire thing is that I'm back to my comfort zone, Alan. I was hitting my stride. I feel like, getting into coming out of week 5 and going into week 6. But now, I'm going to sit back and this is easy to me. I could do this all day long. But I do want games to be played once again.
Absolutely. So, yeah, there's going to be infrastructure. I think infrastructure meaning, the human beings who are running the XFL put back, but they're obviously going to have to get some new people. Who those people are, we don't know. Oliver Luck is the big name that, honestly, I thought was doing a fantastic job as commissioner. And we're going to get to speculating in a bit, but real quick, one quick piece of speculation, Vince. What do you put the odds at Oliver Luck returning as commissioner in a new XFL with new ownership?
I'd say I'm going to say 50% at best.
That's better than I would hope. I would put it at below 10. I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. What about you, Bryant?
Yeah, I'm kind of more on your side, Alan. I think I don't want to speculate on the relationship ties or what happened there, what's been broken or what's not been, but I don't know if I'm Oliver Luck, I don't know how much I'd want to do with the XFL right now.
We'll definitely keep an eye on that situation. We're going to keep an eye on the rebuilding of the league in the front office, and then, of course, personnel comes. So we're back to square one, kind of to where we were when we started this show when the league was announced in 2018. Bryant is in heaven with that. A little frustrating, I think, for me. I was enjoying talking football, but hey, at least there's hope. The Rock's quote, very optimistic in terms of playing actual football, and like we said, not flipping this thing for something else. The Rock said, quote, "The acquisition of the XFL with my talented partners Danny Garcia and Jerry Cardinale is an investment for me that's rooted deeply in two things, my passion for the game and my desire to always take care of the fans. With pride and gratitude for all that I've built with my own two hands, I plan to apply these calluses to the XFL and look forward to creating something special for the players, fans, and everyone involved for the love of football." Hell yeah. Keeping the slogan, wanting to play football. Ballers is real life, Vince.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm excited because, The Rock, he's got so much passion in everything that he does. He's got such a powerful brand. But one thing I will say is that he's got his hand in so many different things. I wonder how much effort and how much hands-on he's really going to have enough time to apply those calluses that he's talking about.
I mean, I think he's got as much to juggle as Vince McMahon had,
maybe more,
if not more, in terms of a variety, but a lot on the plate. But if anybody has the clout, it is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and that is just the bombshell. That name on top of the marquee of this sale just opens eyeballs, not just people who are following the XFL, but across the sports landscape. And it really makes for a different kind of discussion we're going to have here in this week's Hot Read. Because The Rock is involved in this, I really feel like there's hope for the TV networks. I really feel like those networks see that name and say, okay, it's not Vince McMahon, but there's a lot going on here, and The Rock understands television, understands entertainment. That name carries a lot of weight, and maybe we'll hang on, because we did hear, Bryant, a few weeks ago that ESPN and Fox were maybe thinking about pulling out of the TV deals that were in place because Vince McMahon wouldn't be involved after the sale. But what does this all mean now that The Rock and his partners are the new owners of the XFL?
It's intriguing at the very least, right? You want to know what's going to happen. And we're going to see a lot of changes, I think, in the sense of what the attitudes were towards the XFL. When the XFL folded the first time around, there wasn't too much sadness, I would say, in the world, right? People just understood, hey, they tried, whatever. When XFL 2.0 had to fold because of the pandemic, I think the sadness was felt, especially with the likes of social media nowadays. You could feel how people felt about the XFL, and it wasn't good. A lot of people were sad. Of course, you have like your Florio, right? Is that his name?
Yeah,
I don't even know
from
his
Pro
name.
Football Talk.
He always, Yeah, he spoke negatively about the league since day one. They don't care, but like the fans, people in the media, a lot of Joe Klatt, he was always positive about the league. He said some positive things today as well. So to see this be like a rebirth, and I will say that it's not like the XFL was when they announced it back in 2018. I think they're in a very different place than when Vince McMahon came out in 2018 and when The Rock and company are here now.
And I think that difference has to be the fact that we saw 5 weeks of this product on television and what it could do ratings-wise and in terms of interest across sports. And then you throw in the fact that 2021 still is going to be a different landscape for sports and sports media. You're going to have to do different things as a league. Having content to put on TV that isn't old WrestleManias has to be very appealing, Vince.
Well, I as much as I do enjoy those old WrestleManias, something new and fresh and different is always welcome. And that is a very short timeline, 2021, especially if this is a spring league. I mean, you're talking about 8-9 months away. You're going to play some ball games. That's, I don't know if that's their official goal or not, but that seems very quick, especially considering today's unique environment.
And it's really an advantage the XFL would have over the NFL, too. Think about that when Danny Garcia says the bubble. A 32-team bubble in the NFL with all the personnel, I mean, it's just they didn't even try it because I'm sure it just felt damn near impossible. With 8 teams and the way they did training camp already, Bryant, the XFL, if the NFL slips up like the MLB is apparently slipping up here, trying to put on pandemic sports, the XFL has a huge advantage of being, the first full football season played in over a year. Yeah,
the XFL seems set up for this perfect, scenario in an imperfect situation, right? So the XFL, can they actually pull this off? They probably could. Can they pull it off in 8 months? That's the key, right? They have to kind of redo a lot of what was already done before with new people, like you mentioned, Alan. I think the XFL has a plan in place, probably. Maybe their goal, like you say, Vince, or like you think might be, is to play in February of 2021. But maybe that changes. And as you get closer, you can push it to April. You push it to whenever to get a season in. If you find the right TV partners, I don't know. Again, a lot of it is going to be speculation, kind of what we did before. But regardless, I think the XFL has a chance to play a full season of football, especially with the likes of how the NFL might not get through a season. The MLB, the St. Louis Cardinals had like 12 people test positive today. Like, there is a lot of unknowns when you're not in a bubble, and the XFL is set up to be in a bubble and to possibly play in 2021.
But getting to that point is difficult, and getting to it in the springtime is even more difficult. I mean, do you push it back? We'll see what happens, because how much patchwork can happen, Vince? They have to rebuild the whole corporate infrastructure, and then they got to rebuild the franchises. Will we get the same 8 teams? What personnel and coaching staffs will be intact, if any? Those are all very, very difficult questions. Or is this thing totally a complete rebuild? I mean, I would say I would lean towards that, because I don't know how much patchworking you can do.
Yeah, I would think it's more towards, rebuild. I'm building, because you don't know, well, at least I'm not sure, what a lot of the, personnel that were involved in the XFL, they may have other jobs now. They may do, something else. And you got to put all that back together. One thing that we were so excited about, and we talked about it for, damn near 2 years leading up to 2020, was that we were so confident and so excited that league was going to succeed, because they had the time, they had the resources invested in order to really put this together to give us the best product possible. And then now we're talking about them having zero time and trying to put this together. It just seems like if they're not careful, they could really be setting themselves up for failure. Is there really that big of a hurry to get to the market with a product? I don't know.
Yeah, I I'm such a fan of what the timeline that happened going into the season that I would say hold off if that's what's necessary. And unless some way, Bryant, there's like a miracle way that there were contracts we don't know about and ways to bring people back that we just haven't heard about yet. And kind of it just
it's called a phone call. It's called a text message. It's called a direct
plug and play,
a DM in tweet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are still available. That you can just give a call to and say, "Hey, get back in here. Let's do this."
Renegotiate though. A lot of people want to renegotiate though. I mean, it's a different world.
I mean, you could talk about upper level people all you want, but in terms of the play on the field and the quality of the play, which is still very, very, very important.
Yes, it is.
You're talking about having the mobilized coaches and teams, get them together in probably end of December. You then have a couple months of icebreakers and getting to know each other and practices and to get ready for some actual games. It's a very quick timeline to get all that together. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think it's very difficult.
But there's a base, right? There's like a base there that says, hey, if you bring back 60-70% of what was already there in terms of on the field, then you're set up for a better, like the 1 year curse, right? The XFL did it the first time around. The AAF did it. Didn't work for them. The XFL has like a half year cushion in the sense that they have a lot of what, in terms of ideas and what they're going to do and rules. And you talk about the quality of the play. I think, Alan, we can all agree that the rules that they put in place are pretty good. And so a lot of that stuff that took 2 years to do are not actually necessary anymore, right? You have to get the players, obviously, but at the same time, a lot of what you had to do, what you needed those 2 years for, are already done. And you can actually move into a new season pretty quickly rather than actually truly a year's time.
And you know what? We'll see if it's plug and play. Maybe we'll see. We don't know the relationships and the contractual details behind bringing all those kind of personnel back, especially when you talk about coaches and players. And the coaches, I mean, we pretty much could get everybody except Pep Hamilton back. He's with the Chargers, so I think all the 7 other guys are available. I think all the coaches would want to come back to the XFL, I would hope, except maybe Pepper Johnson, unless he's going to coach for someone else besides Winston Moss, Bryant. But that's a whole nother conversation. All I know is that with all this news today, there's a gleam of hope. And now we get to speculate on timelines. We get to speculate on the next moves by The Rock and his group taking over the XFL. I would not put my confidence, because of the timeline, at the same level it was when we first in 2018 got the return announcement, but I'm going to say there's hope, and I'm excited, and it makes a lot of sense the way Danny Garcia especially put it out there today, talking about the bubble and getting back to play and the relationships with the infrastructure. I have hope, and that's what I'll leave it at, Vince. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's hope that it could happen, and we will see in the next coming months what comes out, and see if they really are going to mobilize for 2021.
Well, as the great Red once said in The Shawshank Redemption, hope is a dangerous thing, and sometimes that thing will drive a man crazy.
All day long, great focus, great intensity.
That's what you got to have on this road to redemption, baby. Let's get it. The XFL has new ownership, and this is the XFL show is back, baby. Here we are, wrapping up episode 130, and it was like riding a bike, even though I'm pretty crappy at riding a bike, Bryant.
Yeah, I've seen you ride a bike. It's not good. I'm going to try my best to do what I used to do, and I don't really remember what it was that I said at the end of an episode. I will say this. Go back and watch episode 129. That was a lot of fun. Alan, do you remember that one? That was our little XFL films. If you want to reminisce on 5 weeks of football, go back and do that on YouTube or on our Twitter at XFL Show. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, this is the time I remember when we used to do shows. We do plugs at XFL Show on Twitter and all the social medias that you love to use. We love Twitter, but we're everywhere. If you want to hit us up, 724-565-4XFL. If you want to call the XFL Fan Line, Vince loves the Fan Line. He monitors it constantly, so if you want to personally send him a message, you could go there as well. And, of course, YouTube. This is the XFL Show on YouTube. We are back there, and we are going to be posting episodes and other content on the YouTube page as it happens. We don't have a timeline for the next episode. It might be next week. It might be tomorrow. There's no telling. We live in uncertain times. All we know is that we're back and we're monitoring every piece of news. And when there's news, we will do shows. And maybe we'll have contractual discussions here after this show right now, actually. See if we could plug and play, get the infrastructure of the show back. And we'll let you know on Twitter at XFL Show. All right, Vince, Brian, anything left?
For the love of football.
Oh, that's a good sign-off. I like that. Did you think of that all on your own?
You know, it took me a little bit, but I got it. I'm good.
Vince, you got something better than that?
Just bring it.
That's what I'm talking about. Who is this Rudy Poo? He is the great one, and he's the new owner of the XFL. For Vince and Bryant, I'm Alan. We'll see you next time. This is the XFL Show. Remember,
They're listening. I think. I hope.